Oh yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. And there it is. You hit a magic button and then the show begins. And we're live, we're on air, we are cranking. Thank you all for joining me. This is a kind of a special episode, and it's not so often that I have a friend recommend a guest to me for the show. And then, my skeptical eye is always pointed in that direction. Who is this person? But man, was I impressed. And then I had a chance to chat with him beforehand. And so without further ado, he is a marketer, an entrepreneur, and I would say a Jedi master level content strategist. Primary focus is on this thing called content intelligence. And this is not something we really talked about on the show before. We talked about content, but not the idea of which content, why. And this particular guest has perfected this so much so that he's even outranked the mighty HubSpot, which is basically a recipe for complete badass. He's also a fellow veteran. He was a combat medic, founder and CEO of Ardent Growth. Skyler Reeves, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Casey, thanks for having me.
Man, there's so much. You're doing a lot. You've got so much to your name.
It feels like it sometimes, although I still think I live a fairly mundane life compared to most people. So,
well, let's find out, shall we? I'm going to pass you this thing. It's kind of heavy, but I know you're a combat medic, so you can handle it. Ugh. Okay, here we go. You got that? You got it? Okay. Thor's hammer. All right. Take Thor's hammer from me. Smash some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah. So I think more content is not always a good thing. It isn't what you should always be doing. It's a very one-dimensional way of approaching content strategy for your website or for your organization. And you have to think about, instead of how much content, you have to be thinking about what's the quality of content I'm going to be creating, what type of content am I going to be creating, how are we going to distribute it, what's the best way to distribute it for us to meet our current goals, and in what order does it need to be created to get the fastest results possible, and then ultimately how it serves the business model, and most importantly, who it's for, what problems is it solving, and for whom.
Jeez, man. So it sounds like a lot of us are completely thinking about this the wrong way. I've certainly seen it. Hey, the more the merrier. How many blog posts every day? Even sometimes HubSpot's been known to say you should blog frequently on our platform. So it's not the quantity, it's the quality. I think we kind of think this, but then we act in a different way. Like we kind of know it's probably the quality thing, but then we're like, gotta get that weekly blog out there.
Yeah, I think if you want to be consistent in terms of quantity, use social for that, right? Because it keeps top of mind. You're able to consistently pump out content. But when it comes to your website, you want to treat every blog post on your website in the same way you would other resources in your company. If you produce content every single day or every single week, you're producing too much, your quality is going to degrade. And then ultimately, a lot of that content's not really going to do anything for your business, not in an effective capacity anyway. And so you'll find oftentimes when you go to audit a large website that's got a lot of content that only about maybe 10% or less is actually driving any business impact. And so it leads you to ask the question of, well, what's that other 90% even existing for? What's it doing for us, right? Imagine you had 90% of your workforce was effectively not contributing to the business. That's not a good model, right? You have to ask it like, why does it exist? What's it doing for us? And if it's not doing anything effective, why are we keeping it?
Why are we going through the time to spend that? I don't know if you heard about that CEO recently that laid off like 900 employees on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I was reading about that. And apparently stats had shown that some of these employees had clocked 2 hours a day. And it had actually only worked 2 hours, but it clocked 8. Right. And so some probably good people got thrown out with the bad people, but inefficiency, you're talking about it right now. What if that was the case? What if you had all this content working for you that you're paying for, and really there was only a post here and there that actually drove anything? So it's like, why create that other stuff? But is it because we don't know what that 10% is? So we're just like throwing crap at the wall. It's like spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah, I think that's what I've seen across the board with most people. They're not really sure what content they need to make, in what order. And so they just kind of say, okay, we're just going to experiment. And that's fine, right? It's like lean startup principles, right? Experiment, iterate, and keep cycling through. And if you do that, okay, but go back periodically. You need to audit what you do have and see what is working and what's not, and use that to actually inform future decisions. That's the that's the last step of like hypothesis testing, to actually like learn from what you've just observed as your results. But and it can go, it really works against you in two ways. You end up with content that you've wasted resources on to create, and there's this other effect that it has that, let's say you're trying to rank on Google, you're trying to do this for SEO purposes, that content will also detract from your ability to rank, as you have a ton of content that's superfluous or just not performing very well. You can imagine, just like if you've got if you're looking at your GPA, you're looking at your score in a course, if you're back when you were in college or whatever, having a bunch of zeros is going to drag your overall average down, right? You want to begin to cull that and drop those underperforming pages off that aren't doing anything for you in terms of rankings, in terms of conversions, in terms of sales enablement, what have you, and get rid of them so that they don't drag your overall performance of your site down. So again,
that's a thing. Really is that really a thing? That I think that's a new thing for me. The idea that the bad pages hurt you. I think we kind of operate in the world that, well, we go volume because we think we got to find that diamond in the rough, and there's no pain, no foul if we have a bunch of garbage. But you're saying that it hurts us. It detracts from our score.
Yeah, if it's significant enough. I mean, you're talking if you've got 100 pages or so, it's not going to be as significant there. But you're looking at it two ways. One, Google's not really sure which pages are the most important, and it sees a lot of this stuff on your website that it doesn't want to rank. And if Google doesn't want to rank that page, if Google doesn't want to rank 90% of your pages, then effectively your grade with Google is that only 10% of your content is worth anything, right? So every time you produce a new piece of content, Google has to think, well, is this one going to be one of that 10% that's worth it? Or is it going to be like the other 90, right? And so you introduce a lot of, while it is an algorithm, I'm a big fan of trying to make things as easy as possible to not confuse the algorithm. And so we've seen a lot of times where we actually go through and cull content out that's underperforming, and the website will actually get a lift in traffic, sometimes 15, 30%. And 30% is a pretty big lift when all you've done is get rid of old content. So
wow,
you want to be surgical about it. You don't want to just go through and cut out everything that isn't performing well. You have to kind of look at a lot of other factors involved. But we've seen lifts from it because it allows the other pages to flourish, just like culling dead branches off of a tree or a plant, right? It allows the other ones to really shine. So,
it's funny, but when you bring that up, it makes total sense. And I can see some smart Googler thinking, okay, God, we got to crawl the whole internet again. How can we make this more efficient? Well, here's a link farm site that's complete crap. Yep. How about we algorithmically identify that and then save ourselves the effort in the future and just, rank that low, skip that, head back to the Wall Street Journal or something like that, where consistently is ranking high, or Wikipedia, right? Yep. Asking for donations again. Donate to Wikipedia, people. So it makes sense that you should trim that tree. I never thought about that. I never thought about, maybe it's because you put in it's like you put in that money, you invest in it. It feels like a resource. It feels like you're building a treasure trove, but it's not. It sounds like it's more of a living organism than a treasure trove of gold or something.
Yeah, people, I think the hard part for a lot of people is it kind of falls in that sunk cost fallacy, where.
Thank you. That's the word. Me and my tree metaphor, it's sunk cost.
We've invested these resources. We don't want to get rid of it. And that's not to say that you couldn't take some of that old content and repurpose it and refresh it and make it more useful. But also you want to look back at it too, when you're trying to figure out what you need to create, and ask yourself, like, well, look, I mean, what decisions were we making back then when we decided to create this content? And is it, is that really still the direction that we're heading? But ultimately the way to kind of bypass all of that is to actually have a content strategy in place before you begin producing content to begin with. Or if you've got some content in place, like at some point, like get your content strategy together and actually have a well-defined plan on what you're going to create that maps back to the business goals. Like if you can't, content exists to relieve the constraints on the business, right? So if you can't tie those two together, you don't have a strategy. You're just going through the motions, really. So.
Got it. Well, there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot to that. But I'm in. Okay. It's not just any content. It's not volume. Maybe even cold the old stuff. If I were to say like, well, how do I approach this? What would you say? Like, what is the right way to approach this?
So we have a framework that we follow, and there's a lot of things in our world. We end up kind of reverting back to, well, like it depends, and it does always depend, but it depends on primarily.
Wait. Is this It Depends podcast?
It depends on the business model, right? There are different frameworks to follow depending on the business model that you fit into. So one of the first things we like to assess is to look at how volatile is the vertical that you're in. Okay, so we want to look at things like, how often are people innovating in your industry? How often is terminology changing? How often are new applications for your product or your service? How often are people coming up with new ways to do it, or new ways to apply it? Are there entrenched players, or is it is it NFT where it's kind of going all over the place right now, or is it accounting software, right? So depending on what the vertical volatility is will inform the type of strategy that you're going to take. So things would be, we usually bucket things into three types of vertical, like verticals here. So you got stable, we got mutable, and we got volatile. Stable terminology doesn't change very often. New applications don't emerge all that often. There are very entrenched players. You think accounting software, you've got QuickBooks Zero, right? FreshBooks is coming up on them, right?
Yeah.
For a stable market, the type of strategy you want to take when it comes to what topics you're going to go after is you don't want to really take a lot of bets, because it's hard to really break into that market to begin with. You need to take a long and steady approach. You need to go after what we'd call the long tail type topics. So these longer questions that people have, and work your way up. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. For a mutable market, or an easily sort of adaptable, changeable market, terminology will change periodically, but there are often some well-established entrenched players in that space as well. So you can think of that like HubSpot, Salesforce, anything like that. Like, there are 100,000 probably CRMs, right? But most people can probably only name like 6 to 10 off the top of their head. What happens in that type of market is terminology may change, but the entrenched incumbents will jump on them very quickly, and they'll rank for them very quickly. So anyone who's trying to, if they're a startup, it's very hard to kind of to go after those types of topics with them. Any new applications that emerge, new ways to use the software, they quickly get cloned by the competition, right? Or they'll get acquired. So Salesforce wants something, they go acquire it, right? The strategy you want to take there is you want to, similar to the stable strategy, about 90% of the content you produce, you want it to be on these sort of stable type topics that are long tail, that you're working your way up. And then you want to take a bet about 10% of the time and go after things that may not have search volume at all, but you want to hedge your bets that while they may not have any sort of search volume right now, or they're not popular right now, that they could be in the future. So HubSpot did this whenever they, doubled down on inbound marketing. HubSpot is synonymous with inbound marketing now, right? But I believe it was Marketo published an article about inbound marketing, was one of the first ones to rank for it and talk about it about 6 months before HubSpot ever wrote anything on it, right? So that's what happens. Like you can double down on something, just because somebody kind of coins a term or you hear a term, you can double down on it and really push behind it and grow over time. Now in volatile markets, terminology changes frequently. New applications are always emerging very frequently. There's a lot of technological changes and innovations. They tend to be more, rather than incremental, they tend to be more revolutionary. So you can think, like crypto is probably one of the best examples right now, everything that's going on there. And while there are a lot of players, there's few to almost none, like actually entrenched players who, if you were to look across the market of 24 to 36 months or 48 months, there's few websites that are just dominating the top ranking positions consistently across the board, across that time horizon. So once you know about the volatility, like I said, that informs your strategy. With, oh, by the way, and with a volatile market, you basically just take all the bets you want, go after stuff that looks easy, go after stuff that looks hard, because since it's so volatile, you never really know what's going to work. And so this is kind of more in line with that, throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, right? But when you do that, you have to understand, like 90% of or so, a lot of what you try won't work, but all it takes is for one thing to hit and really succeed. So the first thing to do is look at vertical volatility. After that, and that may sound complicated, it's really simple. Basically just go look at the rankings, see how often they fluctuate. But after that is where things get, I think, a lot more interesting. And you want to look and say, okay, how do we need to distribute content across our funnel? Where do we need to map it to? And that's where your business model comes into play as well. So rather than looking at your industry as a whole, now you're looking at your actual business and how you make money. So you've got top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom of funnel type content, right? Top of funnel drives awareness, middle funnel helps kind of, generate interest and create desire. And then bottom funnel helps convert or you've got that sort of secondary feedback loop on it, which keeps people happy so you don't have churn. But this is where most people mess up. They will create a lot of top of funnel content, or they won't create any. And it ends up creating this imbalance in the way their content is distributed across their site throughout the funnel. And that's just not the way to do it for every single business. So the way that we think about this is, if you've got, let's say you're a freemium based company, let's say you've got a free app, but you monetize through some sort of kind of upsell in the app, or if you're a WordPress plugin, or if you're a Chrome extension, or if you're Canva, or really Asana to some extent. Asana kind of works across the spectrum from, they got a free version, and then they have a kind of like what I would call like the freelancer solo type version.
Yeah.
Then they have their more, for businesses and enterprise, right?
Yeah.
So they have a freemium model to a mid-sized model. And with a freemium model, you want to focus on top of funnel content, because you have to drive signups, right? You have to get people to sign up into your product, hit that activation point, right? And then begin to try to convert them to a paid user, right? So we tell people, if we're looking at a freemium type model, if that's the framework in which you're operating, 70% of content, top of funnel, about 10 to 15%. And these are flexible. They're not like set in stone. Middle funnel, about 10%, bottom of funnel, 20%. And if let's say you're a mid-sized SaaS company, and you're, let's say we're looking at the higher tier model of Asana or Trello, Grammarly, right? They got a free Chrome extension, but they can convert you on the business plans. From that type, you want to do probably something more like 50% top of funnel, 25% middle funnel, 25% bottom of funnel. And again, because the whole goal there is just, you want to drive awareness to get people to download the extension or start the free trial, right? And then use the other to convert them to a paid user. And then more importantly, that bottom funnel content can also be used to make sure that you retain them. So you keep educating them on new ways to use the product, on more efficient ways to use the product. That way they're happy, and you're not, introducing more churn. Churn is like the death of everything, right? So there are other nuances that go into that when it comes to top of funnel. Like, you want to make sure you're bringing in the right type of qualified traffic, and you're bringing the right people, into your platform. But you can be a bit more indiscriminate with top of funnel, because you're just trying to get people to know that you exist. And it's through your middle funnel content where you're showing the use cases that people are able to look at this and say, okay, yes, this solves my problem. This is for me, right? And then finally, you've got enterprise SaaS. With enterprise SaaS, or enterprise really in general, where you're selling any sort of high ticket item, you're looking at a large ARPU of, say, 10,000 plus per year or something like that. You really want to focus more on your bottom of funnel, middle funnel, more than anything else. It's your case studies, your white papers, think more like sales enablement, right? won't probably need a ton of top of funnel, or we just do like a 20% top of funnel, 40% middle funnel, 40% bottom of funnel. And the way to think about it is that because the sales cycles are longer, right? So top of funnel, it's hard to tie that back to revenue attribution. So if you create just some top of funnel content that drives up some awareness that people know that you exist, right? And then your middle funnel and bottom of funnel is able to convince people that you're a fantastic platform, and also make it easier for account executives and things like that to be able to, when you bring up another competitor, they're like, well, check this out. So let's say you're Gong's a prime example of this. Gong has a lot of content, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it is middle funnel, bottom funnel. And if if I'm bringing up, what about Chorus AI, and they can say, oh, well, here, read this, or it also gives the AEs, information to respond to that directly, which is obviously they can do that. They're Gong, right? That's what their entire platform is built around. They can say, yeah, but we've been around X amount of years longer, which means we have X billion, more or whatever inputs on our machine learning model. So, do you want to go with that one, or do you go with this one, right? So that type of content helps close the deals. One thing that's worth pointing out, though, is that when we're talking about these percentage breakdowns, that it doesn't mean these don't mean like numbers. So we're not saying, so for every 10 pieces of content that you create, that's 7 are going to be top of funnel, and 2 be middle funnel, 1 be bottom funnel, anything like that. What we're saying is that let's say you're the freemium model, where we're saying when we say 70% of top funnel content, what we mean is 70% of your traffic, not your content. 70% of your traffic is driven from that.
Okay. So we're not saying, because I was going to ask you, is it the type or the topic? But it's not. It's actually the result.
Yeah, you can think of it like that. It's what's the purpose of it? Like, what's it doing for one, like when someone searches for this and our page is ranking for it, what are they trying to accomplish, right? Mm-hmm. And then 2 would be like, what's the problem that it's solving for? Is it directly relatable to our business, and is our product or service like irreplaceable for what their problem is? That's how you can kind of think about like the business value and where it moves up and down the scale of top of funnel to bottom of funnel.
I wanted to clarify with you, when we talk about the stage that a type of piece of content is, I heard almost a couple of different things. Is it the type of content that changes across stages? Is it the topic that changes? And then how do you know what stage it's for?
So the probably easiest way to think about this is it's a bit of both. So you can actually have one piece of content that maps to multiple stages of the funnel. And there's a lot of people who I think.
How do you track that?
Well, okay, so you ask yourself a series of questions. So like what we like to do is we like to ask ourselves, so like look at the article, right? Or look at your outline, or if you're about to create it, and ask yourself questions like, does this article help increase brand awareness, right? And if it does, it gets a check mark for top of funnel. Yeah. And you could say a lot of times the answer is maybe, yes, or no. So maybe means it could increase brand awareness, but odds are if people are searching for this type of thing, they're already aware that we exist, right? If you're searching for CRMs, you probably already know that Salesforce exists, right? So ranking for CRM, like one may be great for Salesforce, it's not going to directly increase their brand awareness, right? The second question we ask is like, well, does this help create interest or desire? Like if someone were to read this article, would it help create interest or desire for our product? Well, it depends on what their problem is, right? If someone's looking for project management software where you can plan out workload and resource utilization, right? If you're talking about how to plan resource utilization, right, and that could be top of funnel, because you could talk about like, what is resource utilization? What are best practices? But then you can show how to do it with your product, right? And so if they're searching for that, they're probably looking to solve for that problem. They see your product. And so, yes, it can create interest and desire. And then the third question is, does this help nurture interest and really kind of entice them to make a purchase? Well, if they've got a problem and you're able to directly solve for it very well and show through your content how easy it is to do this, then yes, it can entice some people to make a purchase, not all, right? So we might put that in a maybe category. And then the last thing is, does it help retain customers and build loyalty? So if it helps them solve a problem, maybe they've already purchased the tool and they're trying to figure out how to balance out the workload across their resources. They read that, and so that kind of that's your feedback loop on that advocacy level of the funnel. But one single piece of content can actually can map to all four of those. So that's something to consider too. The other thing is to look at the query itself. So oftentimes you can look at things like any sort of comparison type articles tend to be more middle of funnel, right? Anyone who's looking for how to do something within a tool, that's typically on that advocacy, loyalty type phase.
Right.
If they're looking for pricing, right, that's very bottom of funnel. Or if they're looking for, how people in my, X industry use this, that's very bottom of funnel. They're really looking to figure out if it's the right one for them, versus if they're searching for something very broad, right, that anyone could answer, like what is resource utilization, or how to manage a sales list. That's very top of funnel, right? So,
okay, all right. I think it gets a little confusing when one piece of content can help everyone, but I guess that maybe is not as common. That's not really the thing to focus on. The thing to focus on is what problem does this solve, and where in that buyer's journey does this really, move things along? Does it grease the skids at what point in time? If you were to start a blog out from scratch, which not a lot of people get a chance to do, but let's say you had a hypothetical and you were starting out from scratch, are there any things you would do, you would have people do differently? We're looking at volatility. We're thinking about the stage of the content. Is there anything else you would recommend people do?
Yeah. So take volatility into account. From there, say, okay, how do we make money? Right. That helps you kind of say, this is the type of distribution model we need. And then from there, now it's time to actually plan topics to map it back into that distribution model. Right. Yeah. So, of course, you're going to have to take into consideration things like what's our budget look like, writers, designers, what type of medium, all of that. But, you take those numbers, but then we like to say, okay, where do we plan on distributing this content? What's going to work best for us? If we're self-serve, SEO is the way to go there. So if we're going to create this blog, though, we like to start by getting information from two primary resources. One is our customers, and then the second is through keyword research. So you start with customers because they can really help you identify how to lead your keyword research. You'll still add in maybe additional things you didn't discover during customer research to the keyword research phase, but this might be things like, the questions that the customers are asking, the pain points that they have, the objections that they're bringing up, the competitors that they're mentioning, right? If you can't get direct access to the customers themselves, or if you need to be able to do this more quickly, go talk to account executives, go talk to
start a podcast, either way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Talk to AEs, talk to customer service, review Gong recordings, review chat logs, emails, anything you can get that gives you, access to that. If you don't have any of that, go read G2 reviews on your competitors and just see what their problems are and what they complain about and what they like. And that can help you understand what people care about and the types of, if when they're complaining about something, there's a question that usually leads to that, right? So you can kind of reverse engineer what types of questions or topics that people are mentioning. So we'll start there, get customer research. We use that to inform our keyword research process. And the keyword research process is more of the data-driven side of things. You got qualitative data with the customers and quantitative data with keyword research. So with keyword research, take the insights of the customers, map it to the topics, map it to different stages of the funnel, and then go into a tool like Ahrefs or SEMrush, whoever you have doing keyword research for you. Have them think and figure out what are all the broad level topics that apply to us. So if you're something like QuickBooks, they're going to be things like anything related to accounting, anything related to expenses, anything related to invoicing, time tracking, taxes, right? Figure out what are all these broad, what we call seed topics that you're applicable to. And then in the keyword research process, get everything possibly related to them that you can. I see a lot of times when people do keyword research, someone mentioned in a Slack channel the other day that they felt like they were doing keyword research every single week. And that blew my mind. I was like, you should really just do it like once every 6 months or every year, really.
Yeah.
Like,
do they have extra time on their hands? What's going on?
I think it was a very, there wasn't a plan, right? They were reactive instead of proactive. So we like to do keyword research from the sense that we're trying to map out what our TAM looks like in terms of like online search, and really say, okay, what does that TAM look like? And then from there, you can use, to speed it up, we build a clustering algorithm that allows us to take that TAM, because it can be like an overwhelming amount of data. We wrote an algorithm that can cluster it down, make it very much more concise, give you like revenue projections and volume projections, and it's just easier to digest. And then once you have those topics, you can say, okay, overlap your customer research data with that, and then begin to map it to the funnel. And this is why I brought up the percentage thing in terms of percentage traffic, because you could find 2 topics that you can potentially rank for, that those 2 topics could drive 70% of your traffic. Now, we don't like to do that. You can find 1 topic that does that. We don't like to take that approach because it creates like this single point of failure, right? Where what happens if, all of a sudden you bump down from rank 1 to rank 2 for something like that, you've just lost half of the traffic that page was getting because of the way that click-through rates work on Google. So we like to kind of spread it out a little bit, but ultimately we want 70% of the traffic to come from, say, in that scenario for like freemium model, from top of funnel. So you look at those keyword research models that get built and say, how much traffic can this entire topic generate for me? What percentage does that fit into this whole traffic that we're trying to get? And go that way. The last step is really to say, okay, like, how do you determine what the traffic number is going to be to be able to map the percentages to it? And that just comes down to, depending on where your role is in the organization, and like what what your responsibility is for setting goals. That comes down to like, what's the revenue goal? What's the LTV to CAC ratio goal? What goal are you responsible for? Is it traffic? Is it conversions? Is it, whether it's MQLs or SQLs or whatever? Is it the revenue generated? Is it LTV to CAC ratio? Is it churn? So on and so forth. Depending on what those are, you can work out what traffic numbers you need to be able to hit that revenue goal, to be able to hit that that SQL goal, right? And so once you know what that baseline number is, you can do a little bit of algebra to kind of work back, what those percentage numbers need to be, and then map topics to that. So that's our approach. From there, it's just create the content. And there's a lot of nuance that goes into that, but that's a much deeper sort of you got to build a content team. They got to know how to create content, good content.
Yeah.
Best advice I can give there is just have your writers interview subject matter experts so that they can put their unique, product-led ideas into the content. And all content should lead back to the product. So.
Yeah, all ties back into it. Yeah, it's amazing how a little bit of research can just go such a long way. A little bit of thought. We're so eager to jump into it and maybe evaluate it after the fact. We tend to avoid that planning thing that comes before it, but it can save us the 90%. It can save us so much time and effort and money if we just put a little more into it like that. Brilliant.
And it may seem hard, but it's really not. Like, as long as you know how your business makes money, and as long as you know some idea of what your LTV and conversion rates are, this is a process that can be done in like 2 weeks, and so you can have your entire content plan mapped out strategically over the course of a couple of weeks. Now, execution takes a lot longer, but the strategy can be done very, very, very quickly. I think, even though it's a little bit more effort, it's far better than just blindly creating content. So, and is it perfect? No, it's not always going to be 100% perfect, right? But it's better than just throwing things into the dark.
Right. Makes sense. Totally cool, man. Well, I'd love to shift a little bit and sure. Get into the physical world. Just kind of coming out of COVID, we think, and events maybe kicking back into gear. Are there any marketing events, content or otherwise, that you're excited to check out in the 2022? It sounds kind of weird to say that. In 22, what do you anything got your eye? Are you going back to in person, or are you going to stay virtual for a bit?
So it's interesting for me because I came into this world from like the logistics algorithm world.
Yeah.
And about the time I was coming into this world, the COVID was just getting ready to happen too. So never really got to go to a ton of events to begin with. I went to one earlier this year up in Philly. It was more of an entrepreneur kind of meetup type thing. But yeah, so I don't have any direct events I'm looking forward to. I'm always open to recommendations though. I think there for the longest time, it was more of the kind of content related conventions, but I'm definitely more interested in anything related to sales and I would say scaling anything that's talking about finding product market fit, talking about go-to-market strategies, getting it beyond just the more kind of granular tactical content creation side of things.
Yeah, that bigger picture. Do you know Sangram?
What's that?
Do you know Sangram from Terminus?
No.
I introduce you guys. He just came out with a book on how to go to market, just a go to market framework. He's a marketer. He was the head of marketing at Pardot. That's where I met him. But then he co-founded Terminus, which is like an ABM platform. But yeah, he had kind of noticed that a lot of us had, just like we gloss over, we avoid the content planning. We tend to avoid, which sounds like it's really connected, the idea of the go-to-market planning. We just sort of go for it. It's like, hey, hold on a second. Come up, need a little order to this chaos before you just wing it and shoot from the hip.
I think thus far, one of the best kind of examples I'd seen for GTM was Mark Roberge from formerly of HubSpot, where he was kind of talking about his formulaic approach to kind of determining are you ready to go to market, that sort of thing. And same thing with finding product market fit and whatnot. That's probably one of the best research I've found this where I'd love to go to anything where he's talking or pretty much anything that's got, that takes a much more formulaic approach. I don't think you can remove people from the equation, but if we can find leading indicators, that's definitely what I'm more interested in versus kind of looking at lagging indicators.
Yeah. On that note, anything coming around the corner, anything exciting, any kind of changes happening in the world or, buyer behaviors that kind of have you hyped for the future? Or just all the opposite? And you just depressed for the future?
No, I think that's, I think it's going to be interesting to see how social platforms really sort of change buyer behavior with younger generations,
right.
Looking across platforms like TikTok and things like that, and just the sheer reach that people can get across those platforms. If they get in early and they actually have some good entertainment and they're creating the right type of content and messaging for that audience. I think that's what I'm most interested in right now in terms of what's going to go on in the future, because it's I think we're going to see shifts in the way that people are actually going through that customer journey, right? As opposed to searching the way, say, my generation or older generations may tend to do more often. A lot of it tends to happen just starting right there organically on social, and I think that's fascinating. Going to be an entirely new set of problems to tackle. So, do
you think Facebook reinvents themselves with Meta, or is it too late? And have the kids moved on to other platforms, and it's just me, a bunch of old people plugging into Oculus?
I think that I think it's too early to tell. I do think though that they're hedging their bets there, and I'm not sure if they're able to come back unless something shifts in generational behavior. People don't like to go back to the things that they used to use until there's a much longer time period, right? I mean, styles from the 80s or 90s may come back, but it took 20 years, right? So it may be different with technology though. It may be, but.
Do you have an Oculus?
I do. And I've
cool?
used it 3 times.
Has Facebook sucked your soul in when you plug it in?
No. I think the only thing I ever did on there was watch a Netflix movie in the Netflix app just to see what that was like. It was actually really nice. But outside that, it's basically set in a box for 8 months. I think.
Why is that? I don't have one, but so it sounds like it's not something you're just using all the time. You're playing games on it and everything. It's kind of fun, maybe.
It's probably just too busy to really
busy
to do a lot of that. I'm sure.
Maybe just not fun. I mean, that could could be it. It could be the coolest thing ever, and you just no.
Yeah, you see videos people run into a wall, things like that. No, I think there were some there's some fun aspects to it. I think it definitely needs like it's not at the level of if you're into gaming or anything like that. It's just not quite like the rich experience of a game is what I look for, versus just like the graphics of like a good story. And I don't think that's the platform's attracted enough people to create those robust of type of games on the platform yet. So
yeah. May not be ready yet, maybe it can handle Minecraft graphics, but it can't get to, real engines and things like that.
Right. And really you think about it from a business standpoint too, like what's the incentive for the businesses to really invest all the resources into that platform when it doesn't have as much market share versus say, Xbox or PS, PlayStation.
True. Yeah. Well, yeah. Why would you build for Facebook? Yeah. Yeah. Those other guys have the advantage. Do those platforms have their own 3D type?
No, PlayStation does.
PlayStation? Okay.
Yeah, I believe they do. I don't know about Microsoft though.
Craziness, man. Well, my next question is like, really, who are you? How do you know all these things? Can you take me back in time? Like little Skyler days, did you know you're going to be the, spirit talker of all things content and SEO and business go to market? Or what was it like?
No, I'm still learning this stuff as I go, to be honest. That's what I tell people. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. So, we wore shoes, we wore shoes and we had schools and things like that, but
books.
Yeah. Had books.
Learning.
I liked books. It's interesting too, is like when I was a kid and I was going through school, like a lot of people never really applied themselves. And, when I was graduating, I got emancipated when I was 16 and so that I could enlist into the military because I had no idea what I was going to do with my life.
Wait, you said when you were 16?
Yeah, I got emancipated so I could enlist. I didn't join until after I graduated. I graduated when I was 17.
What does that mean? That means like you can like leave your parents and you're an adult now?
Yeah. So like, in order to, swear in, sign the death papers, all that sort of stuff with up at processing, you have to be a legal adult. And so you have to be emancipated in order to do that. So in Kentucky.
Or wait till you're 18 kind of thing?
Yeah. Or wait till you're 18. Yeah. One or the other.
Wow, or you want to get after it. State. Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's really just like a formality. Like in order for me to actually sign the paperwork, I had to legally be, an emancipated individual. That or they would have had to go up there and like sign it for me, and the government won't really do that in those instances. So I, in school I was like terrible at math. Wasn't that great at math. Always thought I wasn't a math person, and didn't really know what I was good at. So I went and joined the military. Was like you mentioned, I was a combat medic, a corpsman. I was a corpsman, right? So
Navy, right?
Yeah, Navy with 2nd and 1st Marine Divisions. So they don't have medical personnel, so we provide all their medical support. Did a few deployments, and after all of that, though, I guess like how I got into this world was it probably started with me. I read a book by Carol Dweck about kind of the whole idea of like growth mindsets, and it dawned on me that all this time that I've been saying that I wasn't a math person, it wasn't that you're inherently not a math person or are. It's really just that I was lazy. I never put in the effort, and I thought about the fact that if I've been speaking English at that time, for 20 something years. And I'm like, imagine if I'd been doing math and practicing math every day for 20 something years, I'd probably been pretty good at math by then.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, let me try this. And so I remember on our 3rd deployment, we didn't have anything going on. It was, nothing was happening anymore. And there was a lot of downtime, and we had internet connections at this point. It was a different world from 06 and over in Iraq. And so there was a website called Khan Academy. Got on Khan Academy and self-taught myself.
Oh, Khan Academy. Yeah.
Yeah. I was, my level of math when I started was like pre-algebra. Well, during that deployment, I self-taught myself from pre-algebra all the way up through calculus, and was like, okay, like I get this now. And math made a lot more sense once I learned calculus. All of a sudden everything clicked, and I was like, oh, now I understand what math is for. And,
okay, hold on a second. So while you were deployed, you were working yourself through the Khan Academy?
Yeah.
Where were you at? Where were you stationed when you were deployed?
So The third one, we were in the air base called Al Assad.
Okay.
It was like, it was this was 2010 or so. So nothing was really happening anymore. There was that kind of like that lull period, I think, between like 08 and like 2015, 2016, before things started pulling out and got crazy again. But so we really didn't have anything to do. Basically, all we did was work out, eat, and other people played video games, and I, was trying to learn math. And from there,
you get shit for that, or was that okay in the Navy?
I was a corpsman. They expected the corpsmen to nerd out all the time anyway.
Yeah. Because you were embedded. You were embedded with the Marines. With the Marines.
Yeah. What's that?
Okay. You were embedded with the Marines.
Yeah. 100%.
Oh,
yeah.
Even worse. So it wasn't like you were just around a bunch of other Navy folks. You were like with the Marines and like, oh God, Doc is studying again. What are you studying?
Yeah.
Math.
Stuff to keep you alive, man. Don't worry about it. No, it was I had a really good rapport with them.
That's cool.
It was that was probably the closest like real sense of brotherhood and family, that I've ever had. So
100%, man. And
it's irreplaceable, right? So
totally. People don't like, so this is what we share, right? So I deploy the same thing, and our Navy corpsmen were just like, they were the good ones. They're the ones where you got this pounding headache from shooting mortars all day, and you're like, Doc, my head's gonna blow up, and you're like, here's some ibuprofen, take some water, change your socks, right?
Water. Yeah, I was a bit of both. I was that was a hard ass at times, but also stuck up for people. I didn't like whenever people didn't intentionally do things I think that would be just detrimental and ridiculous. And the Marine Corps is full of all of that, right? And but at the same time, you've always got those handful of Marines, it's like you're always complaining about something. They're like, my knees hurt. I'm like, well, all of our knees hurt, man. Like we're all hurting. Like, let's keep going. Don't worry. We'll figure it out later. But
you were with an infantry group?
Yeah. I was with infantry. Yeah. So we are, our primary mode of transportation was by foot. So
by foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything hurts.
Yeah. It never stops. So it completely ruined like camping and all sorts of other things that people enjoy, in their free time. Like, I'm like, yeah, I camped for, we'd be out in the woods for 3 weeks out of the month, just like in training. And it's like, yeah, it kills all those hobbies for you. So
it's true. Except for the thing for me is we never had a chance to, like, even on training. I mean, we never lit a fire, right? Which is like the best part of camping, and never did it. And so the only thing that changes it for me is if we do ever go camping civilian style, you light a fire, you're like, this is completely different. Cause I remember just freezing every body limb off in like Fort Hood in New York, and, dead of winter, and no fire, you're just sitting in a Humvee freezing to death. And which is great training for the desert, of course.
Yeah.
But exactly. yeah. I know what you mean about just being outside and sleeping bags and all that.
I don't think we ever lit a fire. We had a fire one time. I remember there being a fire once. It's not like we made it, like camping style fire. It was in a barrel. And that was after, I think we had just like, now this is North Carolina, so it wasn't that cold, but North Carolina can get pretty cold. And we had to break the ice in this river, in this creek, before we like went through it. And we had to like swim in it and do this like obstacle course thing through it. So we were freezing when we got out. And then somebody did have a barrel of fire there, and I remember thinking, "This is great." This is
pretty special.
That was one of the fonder memories, of the time in the Corps. But you talk about the desert. It's funny. We were doing mountain training out in out west, and I remember thinking like, okay, like we're training like go to Afghanistan, and so we were getting ready for all that, and then we went to Iraq. And
right.
I was like, well, that was all worthless, but.
Yeah, the difference between the training and the real life was always kind of funny for me. I remember, IED training where they're having us walk up to the car in a certain formation. You actually deploy, you're not walking up to anything. You're like, that looks suspicious. Let's call it in.
We never did any of that.
Completely different.
Yeah, no, I don't think they didn't give us that training. I mean, it was most of, I'll say this though about the training. It definitely does help when it comes to muscle memory, right? Whenever things do get chaotic. I think it's like that with, whether it's in war or whether that's in your day-to-day job, right? You learn the basic fundamentals, and that way when things happen, you understand how to apply what you learn. That's the difference between tactics and strategy, though, right? So like tactics are what to do in the moment, right? The strategy is the overall plan of of how to execute and get there. But that way, when something happens, you're able to respond. But long story short, though, went and did the military thing, went and learned math, realized I wasn't bad at math. I was just lazy. Learned math, went to college, double majored in philosophy and computer science. Went from there into transportation, was working on algorithm problems, and then someone was talking about this black box called Google's algorithm, and I was like, well, that sounds fun. Got into that, and then from there really found this nice synthesis between my love for philosophy and writing and articulating ideas and understanding people and thoughts with my love for solving problems with whether it's algorithmically with computer science or just just applying math or logic to it, taking both those and blending them together. And marketing and content marketing especially, they fit perfectly together. So
they really do, man. That the tech side and the human side, I find it interesting sometimes when you have those thoughts about yourself that you suck at a particular thing. Folks like Tony Robbins would call like a limiting belief. Yep. But I found that sometimes other people say them to you, or you just say them to yourself. But usually it's the opposite. It's this weird thing where oftentimes, like, I don't know, you consider yourself like pretty good at math at this point?
I think there's always room for growth. I think the more things that I learn, the more things I'm like figuring out that I don't know. That's I'm definitely better than what I was, right? But math is also like any skill. If you don't continuously apply it, it can begin to degrade over time. It's not like riding a bike. It'd be like learning a little bit of French or Spanish and then not speaking it for a couple of years, right? You have to kind of stay on top of it and keep that muscle flexed. But no, I'm definitely better than what I was, but there's still, there's so much more to learn, and totally. Whether it's math or, marketing or anything else. So,
it's funny. We're kind of similar in that, when I deployed, I spent all my time learning Arabic.
Oh yeah.
For fun. And knowing the Marines, like a few people get sent to a school, but no one's learning anything on their free time. So I was a little bit of an anomaly, but yeah, I would copy down graffiti that I'd see out at, in town.
You were working on writing it too then?
Yeah. I could write like a third grader. I got pretty good. But I would copy it down and I'd take it back and I'd work with the interpreters to do that. And even I think I ordered some books, popular American books that were, in Arabic to try to parcel through that. So I get it. I couldn't imagine wanting to learn math in that kind of thing, but I had my own thing where I wanted to understand and be able to talk to people that I was interacting with and put them at ease, not just be like, I'm searching you for weapons, being like, how's it going? What's up? Any bad guys? Mind if I search you real quick? Just kind of that human side.
You brought up like this memory that I had. There's 2 points here. One is that it's not necessarily that I wanted to learn math. It was that I wanted to prove to myself that I could do something that I didn't think that I could do.
Yeah.
And that's really what it kind of came down to. And it's been a progressive track that I've been on ever since. Every time, here last year, I was telling myself, we're a consultancy, we're not an agency. I don't want to scale to a lot of people because I'm not good at managing people. And then I realized I got to stop saying that to myself. It's like, have I ever really tried? I haven't. And so again, that shifts from there. But the note about Arabic. What's funny is that I remember purchasing Rosetta Stone at one point in time. I was going through Arabic a little bit on it, or Farsi. I think it was Farsi, and thinking to myself, this is completely at odds with what you're trying to learn, because in Rosetta Stone, it was learn how to say grandfather, grandmother, or whatever in Farsi. And you look at the picture it's on you, it's two white middle American, elderly couple. And I'm like, this does not fit. And that's actually what spurred me to more towards the computer science route, because I remember thinking to myself, wouldn't it be fantastic if we could figure out a way to drop you immersively, VR style, right, into a country where that's how you learn the language. So gamify learning language in a more immersive environment where you're learning the culture, you're learning the architecture, you're learning, how to ask for things, right? Basically to survive, it's figuring out how to, get a meal, get a place to stay, things like that. And that's what, then I was like, well, how do I figure out how to make this thing? I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to learn computer science. And then somewhere along the way, I got drawn into the world of algorithms and kind of left that in
down
the
that
past.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely the way to learn it, is just to drop yourself in there and have some why to learn it. I think that's the problem. I created I used to have a company or I was part of a company that competed with Rosetta Stone. And I named this thing the Rosetta Stone effect, where people would buy Rosetta Stone, use it like 3 times and then never use it again. But if people ask for software to help learn a language, I'm like, oh, go use Rosetta Stone. It's great. And it's like, is it the software's fault? Is it your fault? They'd always blame themselves for not applying themselves. But you wonder, is that, how much does the software bear in that responsibility if you just used it like a second or two and then quit, but yet it's really expensive, but that is the way to learn, is just to drop yourself in there and survive.
And I think it's a bit of both with what you're mentioning. It's one, you have to have a reason to start, but then I think it's important at the medium in which you're learning it, whether that's software or imagine a course that you're in the past, right? There's a lot of different ways to learn something, right? But it really helps if the format and the professor are really great at teaching it, right, and make it engaging and sticky, right, to make it more memorable. And that's where I think that's the software's job, is to figure out a way to actually to provide you this information in a more engaging and with almost like a dopamine type effect, like where it's going to get you to come back for more versus just the Rosetta Stone style completionist type course. Like, I don't think those things work nearly as much. But yeah, so having the why and then what are the mechanism is there to support that feedback loop of keeping you coming back and rewarding you.
Yeah, it's like one day maybe they'll combine the cool aspect of life and adventure and travel and all that with I need to learn these core basic words, which may be boring, but we're so good at hacking endorphins everywhere else. Why not there at one point? But I did want to, I love that you had that moment where you're sharing with us that it wasn't so much that you're like, yay, math. It was, God, this seems very challenging. And I feel like I've told myself I can't do it. So you kind of want to hold your middle finger to yourself and the world and say, I'm going to prove that I can learn this, like it's climbing a mountain, or like it's, joining the Navy and being a combat medic. This sounds impossible. This sounds really tough. Cool. Let me see if I can do it.
Yeah.
Have you always been like that?
I don't know. I think I've always liked to, I think a lot of people are driven by wanting to prove themselves, whether, it's to other people or to themselves. It's hard for me, I guess, to really say whether or not I've always been like that, because I am myself, right? Like, and this is like the philosophical side, like I've always existed with my own, like, my own self. And it's hard to like really reflect back on what it would be like to be any different. So, but I definitely know, like, the thing is though, is like when I look at people like, say, like the people who went through SEAL training, and I'm like, those people can work their way through anything, you know what I mean? And like, and so like on a relative spectrum,
truly,
that seems much more, dedicated and wanting to, prove and persevere and work through things versus what I've done. But again, I think it's all just kind of a spectrum of who you are and your own experiences and what you're trying to accomplish. So
yeah, it's all relative, and it's also the personal challenge that has that intriguing thing to you. For me, it's mountains or some other things, and for some people it might be learning a particular concept. It's interesting. I just realized this today, and it's kind of on the personal side. I just got certified to try to be a ski patroller recently. And went through a bunch of that medical training, which I know you just are like light years beyond that with your combat training, but it felt similar. But I got to a certain point where my brain decided to say, like, no. I mean, those thick books, the medical books, right? Where it's like it's like first responder kind of thing. And it gets to a certain point, and then my brain's like, God, you have so many bones in the body and you have so much terminology, and they keep throwing this crap at you. My brain was like, I'm not learning anything else. Sorry, I'm done. I was like, okay, I had to have a negotiation with my brain to say, come on, we can do this. And, but, something about passing that, just for me personally, just felt really rewarding, that there was like something that it was almost in proportion to how impossible it seemed it was the feeling I got out of it by doing it.
And yeah, accomplishing easy things is not very rewarding. There was I will never forget. I remember being in the half push-up position at down at Camp Johnson, and the staff sergeant had said, "You have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable," and that's always stuck with me. And I think there's a certain amount of pleasure you get over time of just like work, right? Like hard work. And like when you do accomplish something that is difficult, because like otherwise, like there's nothing really to be proud of, right? Like it just becomes a commodity, right? So no, definitely. And that being said, that's not to say I was always like fascinated by like Renaissance people, and I'm like, people who were, you had Descartes, he was a philosopher, he's a mathematician, did everything, or Da Vinci or anybody like that. And I always wondered like what happened, and there's still plenty of people like that. It's just, you don't hear about them as much. But when it came to like knowledge information, I've always just been able to consume information. But I think you reach a point where you have to make a decision about what's worth your focus. And, there's a lot of things that I would love to learn and love to go work on. But I have to say, like, based on my goals right now, like time isn't my most precious resource. It's how I choose to spend that time and what I choose to focus on. That's more important. And so, yeah, no, I get that completely, where sometimes you look at something and you just think, do I need to tackle that? Or if you're in the business world, it's like, should I delegate that? Should I just hire someone? That's something I struggled with after starting the consultancy was, I spent time like, writing, been designing things for 20 something years, and started writing code, started designing websites, started, learning SEO, writing algorithms, creating software, been developing software now. And it's like, we were trying to go into like PPC and things like that. And I'm like, I reached a point where it's just easier and probably more efficient to just hire someone who, this is what they do. They already know this, right? Like learn enough so that you can evaluate what good work and bad work looks like. But other than that, certain things you just need to, look to other people or ask yourself, is that worth my time to go pursue? So
that's really the balancing act, right? Because yes,
especially
you can do it
you
yourself.
Want to learn everything.
Yeah. But that's not scalable, and that's not where growth comes from. And growth comes from, delegating and elevating people around you, and finding the people that are like super passionate about that topic, and staying in your passion zone, I think is what I enjoy the most. But yeah, it's always that question of, should this be something I need to take on? Also, I found that just as much as we decide what we want to learn is being a little more intentional about what's okay to forget. You can forget this, but you do need to remember this, and being a little more selective about that. So, hypothetical question for you. I may or may not have a time machine here in New Hampshire. It's in the backyard under a tarp, So let's say you come visit, get some beers, get some lobster, and you get to go use this time machine, and it takes you back in time. It's particular though. It's a particular time machine. It takes you back in time, and we'll put the time right about, let's say you've graduated boot camp and you're about to just go off into the fleet and start doing those adventures. If you can talk to that version of yourself, that age, and you can talk to yourself, it's not like it's going to mess up the time-space continuum. All these things are
paradoxes happening.
Yeah. Your sister and brother, they won't disappear in a photo, right? It's all good. What kind of things would you tell yourself? Other than buy Apple, and don't short Tesla.
Man, that's, I think I would have, there's a lot of existential things that could have, that would go into it. I think, really learning who I am, because it's, and then, simpler things about like, hey, don't make these mistakes, or at least think about these mistakes beforehand, but I think it's really hard to say. It's always been a very difficult question for me to think about. And I've thought about plenty because of like philosophy, because I've always looked at where I'm at now and to think about some other possible world where things have been different is like everything that culminated to this point, right? Like had to lead here, right? And so because of the way I've always looked at like adversity or failure or, anything that's if when you don't succeed or you're not good at something at first, I've always kind of looked at it as, I can't say always. I probably, if I go back to myself then, I probably said, like, go read this book by Carol Dweck, like right now. So you can like completely alter your mind, your mindset. But,
because that book started it all for you. Almost like that was like a little spark for you. That
it fundamentally changed who I was as a person. Like
what's it called again? It was Growth Mindset.
The name of the book, it's not word for word Growth Mindset. I think it's if you search for like Carol Dweck Growth Mindset, you'll find it. It's a bit longer of a title. It was an academic book that she published. But yeah, it was who I was prior to like reading that book. Like, and I'm not one to think that, you can just read a book and it just flip a switch in you, but it really did. And it fundamentally put me on a different path in life and changed really who I was as a person, the way I thought about problems, the way I approached failure, the way I approached, solving things. Because prior to that, I would have shied away from trying to do something difficult because I didn't want to fail. And after that, I looked at failure as this necessary component to getting better. And so, when you ask like, what would you go back in the past and do? And it's really hard for me to say because everything that's gone wrong or everything that could have been better, that's part of this process to actually, improve faster. But on a more lighthearted note, I've been like, hey, read that book, change earlier. Maybe don't get married the first time, simple stuff like that. So,
but to your point, those that is, the question. By the way, I love the fact that I'm asking a studier, a student of the philosophy arts, this kind of a question, because you're right. Yes, your sisters and your family won't disappear per se because they already exist, but what kind of things do change if you change them earlier? And do you miss out? I mean, do you forego the pain like we were talking about?
Right.
But do you miss out on something? Have you not grown from it? Almost like we learn more from the failures than we do the successes, where we're not sure why it's working, but it just is.
100%. I think, when we fail, that's when we reflect on like what happened, right? Because it's very visible. When we succeed, it's very, very difficult to, when you're riding high and when you're constantly good at something, to really reflect on why you're doing so well at it. And it's very easy to get into this mindset that you're just naturally gifted.
Yeah.
And that's, that's so rare most time. It's funny too, because like, so I've been creating art for like literally since I was like 4 years old. And I met 2 years ago the guy who like first put a pencil in my hand at a completely random event. He's like, "Hey, I put a pencil in your hand the first time." I thought he was lying, and then mother told me it was true, and I was like, "This is surreal." But
who was that? Was it like a famous artist or?
No, it was just some guy in Kentucky, and I really didn't even know who he was. But I guess he like taught me how to like do some basic shapes or something when I was 4 years old. I didn't remember him, and I'd been drawing ever since, and got into painting, so on and so forth. But long story short, though, whenever I was always into realism, I do like hyperrealism, people, things like that, and people would see some of the work I'd done, and they would say, "Oh, you're really talented," and I'm like, "It's not really talent. Like when you do something for 20 years, like if you're not good at it, like you've messed up somewhere along the way, right?" And I think whenever people do look at something that seems easy to the person who's doing it, they look at it as they just must be, naturally gifted or born that way. And that's so far from the truth. And it really undermines all the work and effort, that you put into it, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's sales, whether it's running a corporation, whatever. It undermines all the effort and mistakes that you had to make along the way. And really kind of shows you a lot of people would rather just kind of, rather than look at it and say, if I put in enough work, if I, put in the time and the hours and the effort to learn this, that I can get there too. They look at it and say, they just must be born that way. And that's why I'm not going to try, because what are the odds I can do it? And I think that's got to reorient that whole thing. So
Yeah, they weren't born that way, maybe they had some sort of mindset from nature and nurture that
yeah,
allowed them to be more accepting of failure sooner,
yeah, yeah.
and iterated faster.
They did in that Carol Dweck study, they did an experiment on children where they would be given these tasks to do, and some of the kids who did well, like whenever they finished their first task or puzzle, whatever, they would tell them, "Oh, you're so smart," like heap them with praise. And then the other group, they would tell them things like, "Wow, you must have worked really hard. You did really well. You put in a lot of hard work here." And as they progressively got the puzzles got more and more difficult, the kids who were told that they were smart or things like that, like they would begin to give up earlier, or they would refuse to do the more difficult puzzles. Whereas the kids who were kind of praised for their work ethic, or whether they, no matter how long it took them, like you must have put in a lot of effort, they were doubling down. They would like try harder and harder and harder. And that's definitely something I think that, like, if we could go back and fix that, whenever we're raising kids, we could change the future really of
Right.
what we're able to accomplish as a species. So
It's funny how by the way, I'd heard of that study, but I didn't remember who it was. And I would Google it for you. The book is called Mindset,
mindset, yeah.
on Amazon. So interesting with the kids, and I'd always try to do that with my kids, of saying like, you worked hard. And I guess as you're retelling that story, for me, it felt like and I've seen this too, the kids who were working hard, and then their people encourage them because they're working hard. It's almost like the reward was the journey, right? So just like with climbing a mountain, it's not really the top. You're there for a few minutes and you're tired as hell anyways. But if you can turn the process of training into it, or the process of a triathlon is not the race itself, it's the freaking endless hours of swimming and running and biking. But if you can make that the reward, then there's almost nothing you can't conquer. So for those kids, transforming their minds into the fact that you're challenged and working hard on this problem, that's the important part.
Yes.
Gives them the strength to take on any challenge, because that's the point of it.
Yeah, because it really helps you form an identity, I think, around yourself of, I am a person who does this, right? Who works hard, who puts in effort. I'm a person who gets up at 5 a.m. and exercises, or I'm a person who, is always checking on my family members to make sure they have everything they need, or my customers to make sure they have everything. It really helps kind of form this identity, and then it's hard to let go too of it, because it does instill in you like who you are as a person, and once that's instilled, you don't like backslide. Whereas vice versa, let's say you succeeded at something, you succeeded first 2, 3, 4 times. I think we've seen this like salespeople, right? And they come in, they crush it like right out the gate, right? And then the moment things kind of get a little bit difficult for them, they just start slipping really fast, because they have this false sense of, I'm just must be great at this, right? And really, it was just a bit of probably naivete and luck that came into it from the beginning, and so they weren't humbled right out the gate. So no, 100%, it's definitely about the journey. So
yeah, I had a back in the day, I had this like sales job, and I would remember I would be at an event, and our manager would come up to us, and you'd see people get hit with the momentum of rejection. If they had too many in a row, and not enough of the success, you just saw them sink deeper and deeper. And the manager would actually, he was really cool. Shout out to Bill. He would go and he would buy them a drink at the bar at the event and bring it back and be like, here you go, just relax a second. Just, it's almost like the football players or sports people forgetting about the last play. Just, you're going to be fine. You'll be, because the same thing would happen if you got a couple in a row that were a success, a sale, you're on fire. And then you just carried that confidence over, to all the next ones. And it sort of became this self-fulfilling prophecy, because you would keep being successful with that mindset.
Yeah, it's there definitely is like a feedback loop there. And
yeah,
that same thing goes, when someone first starts out with something, it's like whenever we start to work with someone new, working on things that we're working on, and if they just don't nail it right off the bat, like we're called ardent growth for a reason. We're passionate about growth. I would tell people, I'm like, you've never done this before. Like, is it reasonable for you to expect that you would just be phenomenal at this? Of course not. Like, but I promise you, right? Like you put in the effort, you do this every day for, for 30, 60 days, like you're going to see noticeable improvement, and you're going to get actually the bulk of your improvement in the beginning. The longer you do something, you're not fighting for these massive improvements anymore. It becomes more like, look at Olympians, right? Like the highest tier Olympians, runners, let's say, they put on this effort and all this work. It's not to shave, 30 seconds off their, off their, not, it's incremental, measured in tenths of a second, improvement changes. And that's the difference between gold and silver. And so, yeah, when you're first on something, like, I think it's always helpful to remind people, like, I would literally just ask them, like, is it reasonable to expect that you're just going to be amazing at this, and when you've never done it before? And like when someone's able to kind of, kind of pull themselves out of the situation, think about it more, almost like in the way you kind of do when you're trying to be meditative or whatever, be removed from the situation. They look and say, oh, of course, it's absurd to think that I would just be amazing at something I've never done before. Like that's not logical at all. So that it really helps kind of help them like go back to the situation and start tackling it again. So
I can see why people would work with you. I mean, the transparency and the authority to say something like that to someone, where normally we're surrounded by, yes vendors. Oh, it'll be fine. No, we'll get success right away. And all these things. It's like, no, hey, it is a process, but trust me, I promise you, we will get there. I can see why people sign up in droves, and you have the challenges of growth and managing people and learning a new challenge. So where can people connect with you? If they want to reach out professionally, the LinkedIn's, the socials, also websites, all those kind of things?
Yeah, best place is probably LinkedIn. That's probably where I'm most active. You search for Skyler Reeves on there. You'll find me on there. Website's ardentgrowth.com. That's really the bulk of it. I'm on Twitter now and then, but very rarely. I forget that Instagram exists. So LinkedIn and my website would probably be the two best places. Or if you're in any private Slack channels, if you're in marketing, if you're more on the probably one of the best communities out there is Traffic Think Tank. That's a great community of marketers. Superpath, that's run by Jimmy Daly. That's a really great community of more content on the content side of things. Nice. Those would be the two that I would recommend the most.
Nice, absolutely. And what kind of groups do you work with? What is, because I know there's a lot of people out there listening that have learned from you, but if some of them want to just even, like we were talking about, just hire you, like clearly you've got it. Can I just, what's the best, group for you?
So we were trying to figure out product market fit for a long time because we started developing software, and it's like, hey, who's this the best for? And it really does work for just about it. Like it's worked for everyone, but there's a question of who do we really understand? Like, and really know, like,
right.
The customers that we understand the most are probably, it's going to be B2B SaaS. That's who we like working with. We get the models, we get the customers because we're customers ourselves, right? So like, it's very easy for us to empathize and understand what it's like to use HubSpot for the first time, or to use Salesforce or anything like that, right? Like it can be frustrating, right? So we're avid users of different types of software. So B2B SaaS, and we really like B2B SaaS that has a either self-service or sales assisted, as opposed to sales heavy. We've worked with some sales heavy, but we prefer self-serve or sales assisted B2B SaaS.
That makes sense. Quicker time to value probably for your team. Good stuff, man. Dude, Skyler, thank you so much for being on here. I don't know if you looked at the clock. Time is literally warped by. Yeah. It has literally warped by. But I get the sense that if we didn't have calendars dictating our lives, we might even just continue to philosophize for hours after this. May even have a full Rogan size episode at one point. So we'll just have you come back on here, and we'll just make it a philosophy episode.
Yeah, I can talk philosophy all day. We can we'll have to catch some time and share some war stories, or from around our time, since I know we were both on that side of things with the course.
Yeah, maybe you can help me figure out calculus, which I've failed numerous times in the past.
Everything I used, I'm not going to go on a tangent here, but I always thought algebra was absurd until I learned calculus. And then all of a sudden I realized why I had to learn algebra. It was so I could do calculus. And then everything made sense. It's like, oh, this makes so much more sense. I was like, think about all the problems I can solve now, like, questions that I have that we can actually work out and come up with answers to. So,
well, good to know. Next time I have trouble with my kids' math homework, I know who I can reach out to. That's perfect.
Khan Academy, I think it still exists. It's a great.
I'm sure. Yeah,
resource.
Khan Academy is a classic for those listening. Great place for studying just about anything. Especially the core concepts, core classes. Dude, this is, again, thank you very much for being on here. This has been a blast.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, Casey. Appreciate it a ton, man.
Absolutely. And for those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, then share this episode with someone else. That's how you're a thought leader. 1 person, 2 people, 98, 3,004, whatever the number. Just get this information in other people's hands about planning their content so that they don't fall in that trap of the 90% of content that goes unused. And hey, maybe trim up some of that content this year. That's a good place to ring out the end of the year, is just by trimming that tree, that Christmas tree of content. And man, this has been a fantastic time. So for all those listening, hey, we will catch you all next time. This has been another episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We'll see ya.